Hello there, and welcome to the nostalgia book tag. I thought with it being a nostalgic tag I should dress accordingly. This tag was created by Noah over at Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse, and I was tagged by Mark at Book Time with Elvis. Please don't be perturbed by the fact that I'm no longer wearing a tie. I just want to quickly add in that I just noticed that Matthew at Bottle Imp Books also tagged me. And I just wanted to reiterate my thanks both to Matthew and Mark for tagging me. I don't know when Luke or John will be tagging, but who knows. I particularly enjoyed, I just watched Kelly at Book Time, no, Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading doing this, and I also saw Summer at Cozy Reading with Quaker Cats. She added her own prompt, which I will endeavour to answer. And I watched Matthew at Bottle Imp Books doing this as well, and many other great people have done it. I might link a few more of my favourites underneath in the description, but for now let's get going. One thing to do, sorry. Okay, let's go. So, prompt number 1. The oldest book from your life that you still own. To the best of my memory, the oldest book I still own is this copy of The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, which was a Christmas present, I think, when I was a kid, and I've thoroughly destroyed it. I've tried to go through some of the more delicate bits and reinforce it with some tape, but I've had this for a very long time. It's still got the bookshop bookmark, from the bookshop where my parents got it from, yeah, I haven't revisited The Hobbit in a very long time, and I'll be getting back to that soon. Moving on to the first loved library book. I believe this was a sort of a picture book, a kind of learning to read kind of book called A Spot in the Sun, and I think it's the first book I can ever remember getting out of the school library, and I was really excited to read it because I thought this was what homework was, and I'd seen Arthur, the TV show, and they did homework on that, and I thought it was so exciting that I had homework to do, and so I got this book and I read it, and it's about a dog who gets abducted by aliens, but then after all the strange things happen, the dog wakes up and realises it was just a dream, or was it? Yeah, if I can find any illustrations or a cover for it, because I don't have it anymore, I'll pop it up here. But yeah, I actually loved it so much that I never gave it back. I was going through some stuff at my parents' house, and I found it, and I thought I'd given it back to the school library back in 2001, 2002, but it was still, yeah, I still own it, or my parents still have it. If I actually had it with me, it would have qualified for question 1, I think, but oh well. Question number 3, a book that was given to you. For this, I've gone with Nausea by Jean-Paul Sartre. It was a Christmas present this last Christmas, and it was given to me by my sister, because she knows me very well, and she knows I love a light-hearted, easy read, and so there you go. Next up is a book recommended to you. For this, it's on the bookshelf somewhere here. Yeah, it is Birthday Letters by Ted Hughes. It was a set text for my A-levels, and this sort of the semester before we were going to be studying it, I was writing my cover letter for going to university, and my English teacher recommended that I said on my cover letter that I knew we were going to be reading Ted Hughes' Birthday Letters, and that I was really excited to read it, even though at the time I had absolutely no idea who Ted Hughes was. My English teacher said I would love him, and she was right. Next up is a buddy read text. And for this, I'll go with like most recent buddy read. I say most recent. It's the only actual buddy read that I've done so far, since I'm still a relative nooktube. I won't finish that off. A relative booktube newbie, which is Letters to a Young Poet. I read this with Lukasz over at A Cruel Reader's Thesis. Yeah, this was really fun. Before this, I'd done some read-alongs and some group reads, and I've done a few group reads and read-alongs since, and really loved them. But yeah, it was definitely really cool to be going through quite a small book, a little collection of letters, but a collection that demands so much reflection. It was really cool to do that sort of one-to-one with someone else, so that's a really fun experience. Moving on. So next up, number 6, books. Yeah, books introduced in school. I don't have any of these to hand, but 3 of the more memorable ones for me would be Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, An Inspector Calls by J.B. Priestley, and The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. And I can't remember who wrote that, although it's quite a famous book, I think. And yeah, with each of those, I quite enjoyed them. I really enjoyed reading Of Mice and Men. It was like the first time since being a younger kid that I was reading independently again, even though I was actually supposed to be reading it chapter by chapter with the rest of the class. I sat at the back of the English class, and whenever the teacher was talking about the book, I was just kind of ignoring what she was saying and I carried on reading, which, yeah, it actually turned out okay. And then Inspector Calls, yeah, that was pretty memorable. I can remember really enjoying reading that. I was a bit disappointed with the ending of Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, I think. I found it a bit underwhelming, although the main character I loved. Yeah, they're the 3 ones that really stand out for me. Then genre fiction that inspires nostalgia. For me, it would be any old Marvel comic book. I was really obsessed with Spider-Man, and couldn't really find that many like proper Spider-Man comic books in my area when I was growing up. So after a while, I was kind of vaguely interested in Marvel comics, but my interest waned just because I didn't have access to as much. My dad had a subscription to Ultimate Spider-Man when Marvel had that kind of Ultimate offshoot with like the Ultimates. I think there was an Ultimate X-Men and Ultimate Spider-Man. I don't know if they did anymore. Did they do a Ultimate Fantastic Four? I don't remember. But yeah, they have a certain amount of nostalgia. My dad had subscriptions to them and I would read them. Yeah, any old Spider-Man just kind of generates a different kind of nostalgia, because it's not only something that I love, but it's something that I couldn't get much of, and so it's kind of there's still an element of possibility there. Maybe my Spider-Man graphic novel reading days are all ahead of me, and I have so much more to enjoy. Next up, literary work that inspires nostalgia. For this, I'd go with James Joyce's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. This is one of the first books I can remember reading at university. It was on one of the first modules in my first year, and yeah, it was one of those first books that I was like, ooh, okay, this is challenging, and in quite a good way. I have very vivid memories of reading the bit with the sermon about hell while waiting for my laundry to dry in the laundrette, and ending up with a very bad headache, which I'm still not sure whether it was induced by the book or by the sound of the tumble dryers. Yeah, definitely, and this definitely reminds me of just trying to find my feet at uni. So maybe it's quite fitting that it's that it's a coming of age novel, and I was reading it at that time. Okay, next up is then a spiritual text that inspires nostalgia, and for me, this is the one I've been struggling with to think of an answer for. when I was watching these tags. I was like, I have no idea what I'd answer for that. But yeah, as a kid, as like relatively young, I did read a fair bit of the Bible, and I think really out of any of the books, I feel kind of bad pitting different books of the Bible against each other. But when it comes to nostalgia, I think the Psalms, I feel very nostalgic about the Psalms, and when I go back to read them or just kind of dip into them every now and then, I definitely feel a lot of nostalgia for the Psalms. And then I'm going to move straight on into Summer's questions. These are really fun, and got me scratching my head a bit with a couple of them. So let's go. Number one. Was there a book banned to you growing up? I don't think there was, but in our house it was kind of very clear that most of our parents' books were in their bedroom. My sister's books were in her bedroom, my books were in my bedroom, and my brother and I shared a room, but we had our own bookcases and stuff. So I kind of got used to most of the time only really reading stuff that was on my shelf. And that was like my safe place to get books from. And then when I was a bit older, maybe my dad would lend me some like Isaac Asimov and Philip K. Dick, and when I read Lord of the Rings and stuff, there were his copies that I was reading and stuff. So, but it's very much me asking, "Oh, can I read that?" And he'd give it to me. I wouldn't just pick something off the shelf. It wasn't something I would instinctively do, it took quite a while actually for me to be able to pluck up the courage to read a book off my sister's shelf as well. Yeah, but I'm still getting over that. Then number two, when was the first time or the first book that you could feel that a book was written by someone from another country? And for me, this is a weird one because I can remember, speaking of like reading my dad's books, being quite young, I don't know exactly how old, and hearing about the Divine Comedy for some reason, and my dad had a copy of the Divine Comedy and just asking him to read it. But yeah, so I read like the beginning, like there's just like probably only the first few lines of the first canto before I got bored, but I didn't really feel that that distance of it being written by someone from another culture, someone from another country. And I don't know whether it's just because I was younger maybe or something, I don't know. And then with like American books and stuff, I never really felt that difference because, at least when I was growing up, a lot of culture was coming over from America anyway. And so for me it was just a book written in my language set somewhere else, so I didn't necessarily think of it that way until I was at university and I did a module on American literature and specifically looking into American identity in the early 20th century, and it was reading things like Light in August by William Faulkner, which is still probably one of my favourite novels, if not my favourite novel, and The Sun Also Rises by Hemingway, as well as things like Passing by Nella Larsen, which for some reason I don't have a copy of anymore, so I'm gonna look for another copy of that, and suddenly an idea of an American identity, of American society, even though I had a rough idea of the history of the US, that kind of, it was just a moment of change. And then moving on, have you ever found anything in a book? Not really actually, I was trying to think, I don't think so. The closest thing I could find is this copy of Tennyson's poems that I picked up recently, and I was repairing the dust jacket, because again, like the Hobbit one, it's pretty ripped, and I found it's from, well, it was given to someone and written in 1948, so just after the Second World War, and on the inside of the sleeve somewhere, maybe it's on the other sleeve, yeah, it says, "This is an economy jacket. Please disregard the matter printed on the inside of this wrapper." And so I was like, ooh, what's on the inside? And it's, if you can see, it's the cover of the, I don't know, something book for girls, which is quite funny. You've got this kind of serious, very academic looking Tennyson cover, and then you have a lovely little book for girls kind of thing with these flowers and sunshine and stuff, which I found quite funny. And then I think the last one is for, do you have an upcoming read that inspires nostalgia? And not much of it, I don't try to plan my reading too much, but the only plans that I have at the moment, and I hinted at it earlier when I was talking about The Hobbit, was to revisit some Tolkien. So I want to start with the Silmarillion early next year. Maybe I'll start in January and I'll read the Silmarillion. Then I'll move on, I'll do The Hobbit, yeah, I'll read The Hobbit, and then I'll go on to Lord of the Rings, and then who knows, maybe I'll then carry on and have a massive kind of fantasy kind of binge. I might read the Cosmic Trilogy by C.S. Lewis. I've only ever read the first of these, and then maybe if I'm feeling brave, I'll start. I'll start on the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant by Stephen Donaldson, because I have them all sitting downstairs. This is the first one. It's a bit delicate, so it's kept in a little wrapper, but yeah, maybe I'll be brave enough to read them at some point. But there we have it. That's the book nostalgia tag, or the nostalgia book tag. I'm not sure which way around it goes, yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. If you've read any of these books, or you're planning to, I'd love to hear what you have to say. What would your answers be if you were planning to do this tag? And let me know with any of the fantasy books if you're up to maybe some kind of group read or read along or anything. I'd be happy to join in with that. So yeah, just let me know if you want to. Otherwise, that's everything. I'm not going to tag anyone. So many people have done this. So if you're watching and you haven't done this yet, please do. Please, yeah, feel very welcome to do so. But that's all, folks. See you later. Bye bye.